things I think while I lie awake and contemplate tonight are wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts. So during the day, well, I design machines of war that scream through the sky. Cause I, for one, I'd like to go to bed free at night under these stars and stripes. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubt. And I have my doubt that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubt. But they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out. And I don't understand. So roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. I have my doubt. And I have my doubt that we'll make it back out. And I have my doubt. So I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubt. And I have my doubt that we'll make it back up. I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think while I lie awake and contemplate at night are wearing me out.
Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
forever. Wow. It's September 22nd, 2015. This is the Watchman News. I am your host, Mike Callahan. It's been a little while. I had a power supply blow on my computer, and so I really couldn't get anything done. Luckily, I was blessed with a tablet shortly before that, so I was able to stay connected with the world outside of 3 feet in front of me. But I just couldn't do nothing on the tablet. It's got like a real bad camera on it. The microphone isn't real good. It's a cheap $37 tablet. So I couldn't really do much with the news. I tried to post on the Facebook page and stuff where I could and when I could. Speaking of that, lately we have had, and when I say lately, I mean the last couple of days, we have had a crazy amount of people join the Facebook page. I mean, we're not like, in the thousands or nothing like that, but I want to welcome those people, and I want to urge those that come to YouTube and watch our videos that aren't a member of the Facebook page, please join, because there's a lot of times that I'll post news. There's a couple other administrators there that post news from time to time in their respective fields. And I try to keep people up to date as to what's going on as far as the Watchman News there, although I should probably be a little more active than what I am. And I'm going to be working on that. It looks as if I'm going to be moving our news slot to the morning. And it looks like, if all goes well, God willing, I will be back to doing daily news Monday through Friday, but it will be between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. That seems to be the best time because I can, I don't have a lot of background noise where I'm at. I'm not going to be like a lot of people and tell you, I'm in a bunker, I love Hagman and Hagman, but they're in their basement. Anyway, no, I'm easy pickings here. I'm not in a bunker or anything else, but there's activity here, and during the mornings I'm here alone, and I'm scared. No, and so it'd be best if I do the news in the morning. It seems to be anybody that's been a long time listener, I have anxiety issues. I suffer from PTSD, and my anxiety level in the morning seems to be a little lower than in the evenings. It just seems overall like a good idea to be doing this in the morning. So anyway, I've got some news set up. I tried to rush and get some news together this morning so that I could give you some links. I've got a little bit of discussion because it seems like a lot of people are really they're going with their emotions on this whole campaign deal. And I'm going to try to explain why that may not be a good idea. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But as usual, we're going to get into the routine that we did have. Unfortunately, News in 2 Minutes has not done an episode in quite some time, which is a huge shame. They really did a good job, and it was nice to throw them up at the beginning of the show because they could cover so much in that 2 to 3 minutes than what I could sit in here all day talking to you. They did such a wonderful job. They had all the important news. It was a really, really wonderful thing. Let me get my windows rearranged here, and we will start out with suspicious observers and his report for the day, and we will go from there. And as always, the link is down in the About tab. Also, the links are down there for the news stories I'll be covering today, and also the links to Transforming Disabilities Facebook page, their GoFundMe page. Please, by all means, check us out, share us. We're trying to do some good things. We haven't got any donations yet. That's okay. When the Lord is ready, we'll get those donations. And right now, we're trying to get all kinds of things lined up and together. And I have been unsuccessful in even being able to obtain the domain name and web space, so I can start building the website and whatnot. So, God willing, it will happen in time, and hopefully that me and my girlfriend Jennifer, as disabled people, she has cerebral palsy. Hopefully, we'll be able to help other disabled people. So that's the goal. So without further ado, let's move on with suspicious observers.
Good morning, folks. We've got a potential CME on its way, but thus far, things are a bit calmer today. The large, dancing dark ropes you see here are plasma filaments, one at the limb just coming into view, but the one already turning in is massive and has become Earth's top eruption threat on our star. Eyes on it. Coming to spaceweathernews.com, we find the solar flaring back in the gutter with one of our two flare makers departed to the right, but the other one not only still visible, but with some magnetic mixing and flare potential. It's just coming in now. That quiet may not last. Looking at the solar wind, we see continued high speed, now with some density waves as well. If they hadn't tipped the BZ north and tossed the phi angle around, we'd have a geomagnetic storm, so watch for shifts in the red and blue today. As you remember, we've got a lower level earthquake watch. It's just the Earth-facing coronal hole factor, but it is a big one. The larger aftershocks continue building in Chile, and we also saw a very rare rumble near Somalia. Not many quakes in that region. Top article comes from the ESA. They've measured the ground after the Chile quake and tsunami disaster last week and found a 5-foot displacement and almost 2 feet of horizontal movement. How about magnets acting like water? Certain structures built of magnets have now been shown to exhibit phase changes under variable temperatures. That's got Electric Universe written all over it, linked for you below. We've also got 2 articles of note from Flood List, one in Iran, and the other detailing that New Zealand flooding I mentioned yesterday. The convergence lines got them surrounded today. Top weather alert today, however, comes to Europe. A low stuck between nations is drawing everything it needs from the waters to the west. The top alert in North America right now is tropical moisture heading for the desert and up the breadbasket. Floods in the southwest are almost guaranteed. We've got some current conditions and shots of our star to close. It's 6:25 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
And as always, oops, a wonderful report. I kind of hit the mute button there twice. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let me get this switched over here. It's been a little bit, so I'm not quite as smooth as what I used to be. If I was ever smooth, I don't know. But anyway, I had a little bit of time on the Pete Santilli show last night. I called in and talked a little bit about the pole shift and whatnot, some interesting stuff. So hopefully I will get a chance to very soon have a longer discussion with him about it. It'll be really, really nice. I just threw a splash image up there because I'm trying to get set up for the first story. And wow, that's not the story I was going to do. Anyway, I'm trying to get set up for the first story, and that way you're not seeing all kinds of funky stuff going on in the background. So without further ado, I can throw the volume back up for that one. And the first story I was going to talk about with this ex-hedge funder buying the rights to AIDS drugs and raising the price. Let me get this switched back over so you can see what I'm looking at. Sorry, I'm usually a little smoother than that, but I've got 4 million windows up and only space on one monitor for one. So I do drastically need another monitor. I'm just happy to have my computer back, because without that, a tablet's okay, but it's just not a computer. I got one window. That's it. And if anybody knows me, I usually have about 10 or 15 windows up at a time on my computer. So anyway, let's get on with this story. Wow, this is crazy. I'll go ahead and read the story. I'll talk a little bit about it. This is absurd. A former hedge fund manager turned pharmaceutical businessman had purchased the rights to a 62-year-old drug used for treating life-threatening parasitic infections and raised the price overnight from $13.50 per tablet to $750. According to the New York Times, Mark Shkreli, something like that, Shkreli, I bet it's Shkreli, 32, the founder and chief executive of Turing Pharmaceuticals, purchased the rights to Daraprim for $55 million on the same day that Turing announced it had raised $90 million from that name, Shkreli and other investors in his first round of financing. Okay, you can. I put the link down in the About tab. You can go read the whole thing. I'm not going to bore you to death by reading the same thing that you could read. Wow, this is crazy. You know, when they pushed this Obamacare thing and all that, they really tried saying, you know, oh, we're gonna do healthcare reform. No, they did not do healthcare reform, not even anything near healthcare reform. All they did is mandate that we have to pay medical insurance on ourselves, and allowed the insurance companies to just go crazy with their prices. Okay, so maybe now they do accept pre-existing conditions. From what I understand, I haven't personally shopped for health insurance or been on the marketplace or Obamacare. There's no way I would sign up for that. They can threaten to fine me. They can whatever. I'm not going to go there. But that's not healthcare reform. Healthcare reform would be going after people like this. Most of these drugs can be produced for pennies. The same drugs that you or your loved ones are paying outrageous prices every month for. They can be produced for mere pennies. And, you know, they will give you excuse after excuse after excuse. You know, they will sit there and they will tell you, oh, well, we have to do this because of all the research, or it costs so much to get the FDA, you know, approval for this drug. Look, you know, if you look at the antipsychotics and what they've been doing for the last, 20 years or if not longer, with the antipsychotics, what they've been doing is a lot of them they've been deeming for more or less like for weight loss. And then they're given the approval to use them for, what's the term? It's off-label or something like that. And so then they use the drug to treat, you know, depression, psychosis, you know, you name it. And it allows them to get it passed, get the FDA approval much quicker, much easier, and much cheaper. First of all, you know, if anybody pays close attention to the FDA, they know that they are not on our side, not whatsoever. So we shouldn't trust them to begin with. But then beyond that, you know, they're not taking the harmful drugs off the market. They're not taking the harmful foods off the market. In fact, they seem to be approving the most harmful of the foods and the drugs, and not allowing the non, you know, dangerous drugs, the non-dangerous, you know, foods. We can't even get labels on GMO products, and we're supposed to trust these guys, you know. So back to healthcare reform. If they wanted to do true healthcare reform, they would go after people like this. You know, if there's a crisis, you know, let's say that there's a bad snowstorm or a lengthy power outage or something like that, they immediately go after gas stations for gouging. If they, you know, crank the prices up for gas, they go, so why can't they go after this guy for price gouging? You know, compared, you know, the guy that owns the gas station that's charging $10 a gallon and gouging people is making nothing compared to people like this and these other large pharmaceutical companies. Nothing. It's a drop in the hat. But they won't go after them. That should raise a lot of questions right there. And I think it's crazy. There's another drug, and I don't believe it's the same one. I think it's a different drug that they had the same issue with because they're not producing it now. It's a drug that they give for snake bites or something. I was hearing about this. And so now a dose of it is just an outrageous amount, and from what I understand, the reason why the company that produced it no longer produces it is because they couldn't make a whole lot of money off of it. It wasn't needed a whole lot, and they couldn't make a whole lot of money off of it. The money is the root of all evil. There is no doubt about that. The good book is correct. And all these companies that are just worried about the profit, that is all that they're worried about. I can't wait until they go down. And eventually, for one reason or another, they will go down. It's crazy. Let's go ahead and get on to our next story. This stuff just, it boggles my mind. So the Pope, right? He's coming to the U.S. Again, the link's down in the About tab. I'll read this story, actually, because this is, I don't know, people may have mixed feelings, and I try not to offend people and or their beliefs, but anybody that has actually read the Bible knows that there's just something not right with this guy. And anyway, his visit will produce the largest security operation in U.S. history. Wow. Could you imagine if Kennedy had this? John Lennon, all these other people, and yet this guy. Why do they think they need to protect him to this extent? That's kind of my question. I mean, obviously he's going to be a target, but I know there's like no drones, personal civilian drones allowed within, I think it's 2 miles or something. It's crazy. Anyway, let's get on with it. Federal authorities are mobilizing one of the largest security operations in U.S. history ahead of Pope Francis's arrival Tuesday, an effort that is straining law enforcement resources in Washington, New York, and Philadelphia. Hundreds of thousands of onlookers are expected to gather in all 3 cities for a glimpse of the Catholic Church leader who unrivaled global popularity and proclivity to wade into public crowds as he added to security concerns. Sorry, my second cup of coffee is kicking in. Thousands of federal and local personnel will be deployed to keep the pontiff and the public safe. The challenges are immense. I love how they put that. I wonder if we're going to see the phrase abundance of caution. The Pope's 5-day tour, his first in the United States, will include appearances at the White House and Congress, a parade on Constitution Avenue in Washington, a mass at Madison Square Garden, a procession through Central Park in New York, and an open-air mass with up to 1.5 million people in Philadelphia. His Big Apple visit coincides with the 70th UN General Assembly, where more than 150 foreign delegations are also expected, creating a virtual lockdown in portions of Midtown. Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson has designated Francis's stops in each city a national special security event, a rare designation to streamline the federal response that had previously been used for presidential inaugurations, State of the Union addresses, political conventions, NATO summits, the 2002 Winter Olympics, and Super Bowl, 36, I believe, in 2002. The U.S. Secret Service is in charge of coordinating a massive intergovernmental operation. Wow, it's like a Monday morning without coffee. On counterterrorism operations, crowd management, crisis response, and air and vehicle traffic control. The FBI, Capitol Police, Coast Guard, Pentagon, and Federal Emergency Management Agency are closely involved in the planning, along with local police departments. Let's go ahead, and then it's down in About tab. It's kind of a lengthy story. It goes on and on and on about this guy and all this security. And I get it. I understand why he's got all the security. I understand that he would be a major target and yada, yada, yada. And I understand it's apparently a big deal that he's coming to this country. But it's kind of concerning, especially with the UN coming, and it's kind of concerning with everything that the Pope has been pushing with climate change and everything else. If you paid much attention to this channel, you'll find out that I talk quite a bit about a pole shift because it's really important. You can go to a website and check it out. And I urge everybody to go. I'll type it in here. It's already right here. It's called magneticreversal.org. And if you go to magneticreversal.org, there's like 4 little short video clips on the side here. And there's one that's like 8 minutes long. I want to say it's this one over here. But most of them, like this is 8 seconds long. This is 19 seconds long, this one here. I don't know what this one is. It's not loaded up yet. But there's one of them, I think this is the 8-minute one. There's one that's like 8 minutes long, and it really does a good job of explaining the pole shift and what's going on. And once if you sit down and if you think about it, if you push everything out of your mind and just think about the physics behind this, you'll understand why we have our climate change. You'll understand everything from the climate change to the mass die-offs to this, all kinds of different stuff. It will just start making sense to you, and it will start adding up. And, my question to Pete Santilli last night, well, one of my first questions, which really wasn't answered, but how come nobody's talking about it? You got all these guys, and I'm not going to sit there and bash anybody, but you got all these guys. You got Hagman and Hagman. I love Hagman and Hagman. You got Alex Jones. You've got, Pete Santilli, which I believe we'll talk about it. And you've got Rick Wiles with True News. You got all these guys, they won't talk about the pole shift. And once you sit down and you think about what's going to happen when that pole shift happens, you have to ask yourself, why aren't they telling people? Why aren't they warning people? I mean, if you look at the little video clip that's playing, that's showing our shield weakening and how quickly it's weakening. And the scientists, the honest scientists are updating what they're finding out and telling people, wow, this is coming faster than we ever imagined. The actual shift. Like here, they've got down here, number 7, magnetic reversals can occur in less than 100 years. Well, they found like woolly mammoths and stuff like that. And I can't remember the country, if it was like, if it was up in Siberia or where it was. But they had fresh greens inside the stomach. They froze that quick, that solid, that they still had fresh food that they had eaten inside their stomach. So you tell me that was a 100-year freeze. No, that was instantaneous. And if you've ever played with a top as a child, you spin the top. And the top, as it starts to slow down, and it starts to get a little wobble in it, and it'll wobble more and more and more. And at some point, it just flops. That's what's going to happen to the poles. And it's my belief they're not going to go 180 degrees. The South Pole will be where the North Pole was, and the North Pole will be, I don't think flat. I think they're going to go 90 degrees. And from everything that I've looked at, it looks like it's going to be real interesting. But it looks like the new North Pole, I think it's going to be somewhere near the Great Pyramids in Egypt. So anyway, that's a lot of my theory there. Check this out. Listen to that 8-minute video. This is also by Suspicious Observers. And you will find some very interesting information there. So my mouse is giving me fits. I need new equipment. Anyway, check that out. It's very interesting. And pay attention to it. Tell your friends, tell your loved ones, let them know about this, because this would produce, well, just like he got listed down here, magnetic reversals may cause biblical floods. Magnetic reversals lead to extinction events. We know this has happened. The scientists have pulled cores up from the earth that have proven magnetic reversal. This is not, this is not something that's never happened before or anything like that. But it will also cause the earthquakes that the Bible mentioned, the tidal waves the Bible mentioned, all kinds of crazy events, just like the Bible mentioned. So it's something to check out. Again, make sure you check out, I think it's this one here, the 8-minute video. He does a real good job of going in depth explaining it. And And the phone is ringing. Let me check to see if it's something important. I will have to call that number back later. Anyway, let me go ahead and move on to the next story. Let me try to kill this phone here. Sorry about that, folks. Let me go ahead and go on to the next story. I've been following Russia quite heavily here, and yesterday, their embassy in Syria was apparently shelled. That's the report. And it's just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Russia's foreign ministry on Monday called for a concrete action after a shell landed on its embassy compound in the Syrian capital, blaming forces battling Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. A shell fell on the territory of the Russian embassy in Damascus on September 20th around 9 a.m., going deep into the underground without causing damage, the ministry said in a statement. We condemn the criminal shelling of the Russian diplomatic presence in Damascus. We await a clear standpoint on this terrorist act from all members of the international community, including regional actors. What is needed is not just words, but concrete action, the statement said, adding that the shelling of the Russian embassy was done from the direction of Jabar, where the anti-government militants are based. Now, by the way, this sounds a lot like the speech in 2001 that George Bush gave, doesn't it? The militants have outside sponsors who are responsible for influencing their actions, the foreign ministry said. Who do you think those outside sponsors might be? The Russian embassy in Damascus, Mazra neighborhood, had been hit by shells on prior occasions. In May, one person was killed by mortar rounds that landed nearby. 3 were hurt when mortar rounds landed inside the compound in April. The United States has accused Russia of recently deploying troops, artillery, and aircraft to the war-torn country, ratcheting up fears that Moscow may join the fighting along its old ally Assad. Moscow has insisted it is only fulfilling long-standing military contracts and is currently on a diplomatic push to get a U.S.-led coalition of Western and regional powers fighting the Islamic State group to join forces with Assad against the jihadists. Well, again, if you've been coming around here very long, you know that it's at least my belief that we are funding ISIS. We trained ISIS, and I don't mean me and you. I mean the powers that be. So, and it still makes you wonder. You know, is the world a stage? You know, and they're doing this for a show for us and for all the other people of the world. Or is there actually a friction going on here? And it is very, very interesting to say the least. But I do think that there is something going on. And I do believe that, that we're looking right at World War III. And everything is adding up to that. I want to add to this that one of the things that the Bible does speak about is the fall of Damascus. And I have to ask, is this, are we at that time? Are we going to see Damascus fall within the next, coming days, weeks, months, because of the fighting that's going on in Syria? And at some point, we're gonna butt heads. And this is what a lot of people refer to as a proxy war. For those that don't know, it's basically when we go in another country and say, oh, well, we're not fighting these guys. We're fighting these guys, And truth be known, we're fighting each other. Look, our government, and this is if you do believe that there's a real friction in between countries, our government has been doing all kinds of things to Russia. And we've been putting all kinds of economic sanctions on them. We blame them for the airplane that went down. Was that over Ukraine, I believe? We blame them for that. And we're just trying to make them look like the devil, like we did back in the 80s. um, I was in school then, and I remember all the propaganda back then against Russia, and then it changed to the Middle East, and then I guess now we're going back to Russia. So just keep a very close eye on it, because things are going to start happening very, very quickly. All right, now to get to the other stuff that I was going to discuss, I believe that covers the actual news stories I had. Back to the other things I was going to discuss, because I think a lot of people are really getting misguided with this campaign deal. Okay, so I would like to, and there's a lot of things that people are just, it's tribalism, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. It seems, but there's just so many thoughts, and it's been a while since I've done the news, and none of this stuff stops moving in my mind. It's always moving. I'm always analyzing it. I'm always tearing it apart, trying to find out what their angle is, what they're trying to do. Even this clock deal with this gentleman down in Texas. It looks like that was just something to create a division and to create a distraction, and it's working. I see people. This is another instance. Just like the Ferguson deal, just like all these other situations that just the media just drives into people. The clock deal is doing the same thing, and a lot of it, I hate to say it, but a lot of it, for the people that are against this young Muslim boy, it's a racism based hatred. Wow, there's a lot more to it that we don't know, and you got to watch the websites like Conservative Tribune, and is the name of one of them. There's a ton of them, and I'm not anti-conservative. Don't think that I am. But you have to watch those websites, because they aren't necessarily truthful. They all have an agenda, whether they be liberal, conservative, whatever. Again, if you've been coming here long, you know that I don't wave a flag. I don't wave a flag. The only flag I wave is the Christian flag, and I wave that high above the American flag. And after that, I don't wave flags. I just do not wave flags. So, wow, that's interesting. I normally don't get calls that quick. Sorry about that. So let's talk a little bit about this. That this clock apparently, and I don't know, I haven't really looked at the images to know myself, and I guess I should. But it doesn't appear that he actually built this device. It appears more that he disassembled like an alarm clock, and then put those components inside of a pencil case, I believe is what they called it. And that raises a lot of suspicion right there for me. And the reason why, excuse me while I took a drink of coffee, the reason why is because this whole event, the way it was done, it was obvious it was meant to get as much attention as possible. It was obviously meant to divide as many as possible. And I've seen the reports of who the young man's father is and everything else. And maybe that's it. Maybe it ends there. Maybe he's trying to drum up a big case or cause issues. Maybe it begins and ends with the father. Or it could go much deeper than that. But we have to watch when we jump to take sides. And I'm getting to the campaign stuff with this. This is my segue into it. We have to watch when we take sides, because if we're not careful and we let our emotions lead, they can take us to some very, very wrong places. With that, Donald Trump says a lot of stuff that a lot of people are like, yeah, go get him, Donald. I'm telling you, if you stop and you don't let your emotions lead and you step back, just take a couple steps back and just look. Donald Trump is no different than Obama, just with different ideology, different goals. At least that comes out of his mouth anyway. But he still wants to walk in and be a dictator. I have yet to hear a single candidate say to an answer, let the people decide. When are we going to hear that? When are we going to hear a candidate give it back to us? We hear all about their ideas and what they want to do and what they're going to do and their promises, whether they be real or false. But when are we going to hear a candidate say, well, that's up to the American people? Because it's supposed to be. And that's why I said be very careful, no matter who you support. Whether it be Bernie Sanders or Ben Carson or Donald Trump or, my goodness, Hillary Clinton, be careful. Just because they say things that you agree with doesn't mean it's in the best interest of the country. We don't need another president in office that's just writing up executive orders left and right like crazy and making we just we don't need that. We need to have the power back. Government is not the answer. It's not. It's really what has really ran this country into the ground. Whether it be financially, whether it be with liberty. You've got a poor family out in Nevada that, the government's trying to take their land by eminent domain. They own, 400 acres, I believe, or something like that, butted right up against Area 51. I believe just on the other side of the mountain as Area 51. And the Air Force is trying to use brute force to get them off this property. They've got a mine that apparently still has precious metals and whatnot in there. And it's been in the family for like over 130 years or something. And that's not the United States of America. It's not. Our government's not supposed to go in and take these big land grabs just because they want it. Bundy Ranch really did a lot. It really did a lot. That's what we need again. We need people en masse on this property, armed, because that seems to be the only way we can get through to this government. And I'm not promoting violence, not in any way, shape, or form. An armed society is a polite society. And that was proven at Bundy Ranch. I've said it before. You've got all these people that are protesting in the streets, and they've got their signs, they've got their chants, and hey, I'm all for it. Whether I agree with what they're protesting or not. I don't have to agree with it. It's the First Amendment. It's freedom. That's all I have to support. I don't have to support their cause, but I support their right to speak their cause. We have gotten so far away from what our founding documents intended us to be. And in a lot of cases, we were tricked. We were manipulated. They were using stories on the news, and they still are, to get our emotions going and to get us to choose a side and to get us to go against one another. And if you pay attention to social media, there's a lot of people that get downright hateful. Threats get thrown out. And this is from all sides. it's scary. It really is. To know that you may go somewhere and want to profess your thoughts on something, and that somebody could actually cause you harm. It's crazy. I think we need to be very careful with this election, because I don't feel right with anybody that's running. Not anybody. I don't think I will feel right until somebody makes that statement. Well, that's up to the American people. And whichever way it goes from there, whether it's, against or with my beliefs. But right now, we have so many things that are going against the common good and against the majority's beliefs. And it's not a majority rule, by the way. This is not a democratic nation. It's not. It's a constitutional republic, which means that the individual is to be protected, not the biggest group. And the way it's been ran, we are all losing our rights to individuality. Every one of us. And they do it by playing on our emotions and getting us to back and to cheer on them taking away the liberties of other Americans. And that's why I support people out there protesting, even if I disagree with what they're protesting about. Because if I take their rights away, my rights will be taken away. That's the way it works. It's the thing about freedom and liberty. You have to allow others to have it too. And that's kind of why I'm kind of concerned with Mr. Trump. Because even though he says a lot that sounds good, I believe we need to close our borders. Sorry about that. Person was trying to call me on the phone, hit me up on Facebook. I was letting them know that I'm live, as opposed to dead. Anyway, so that's in a nutshell why we're in a dangerous position right now. I mean, we got so many things. We got so many things that we have to address and we have to get a hold of right now, and we have to revert. We've got this healthcare thing. We've got all these global warming bills, these, carbon tax bills and all that stuff. If we don't get a hold of that stuff and it's allowed to run rampant, we are going to be in some very, very big trouble. If you actually read the documents, and I know a lot of people don't, and they're very long and they're very boring, but hey, I read them anyway. If you were to actually read, the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, you would be shocked. It would cause a fear to run down. You would have shivers run down your spine if you'd actually read it. And I am even talking about the people that are adamantly against it. Because, wow. The stuff that they have planned for us, wow. And I don't believe it when a candidate gets up there and he makes a statement, well, I'm going to repeal Obamacare. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Where are they now? And I know Trump's not in the Senate or the House or anything like that. But the Republicans had the perfect opportunity to get rid of Obamacare. they've had the perfect opportunity to change a lot of the stuff that Obama changed for the worse, and they have done nothing. They don't work for us. They work for the corporations. They work for the banks. That's why I'm saying we need a candidate that says and means it's up to the people. And you'll know when we get that candidate that actually means it, because he'll never live long enough to make office. That is the state of our union. It's sad. It's a sad affair. I know I didn't have a whole lot of actual, news for you today, and I will do better tomorrow. This was kind of I'd been mulling over it last night and today, and I've been thinking, I'd like to get this daily news going again, and I've been trying to figure out when's the best time slot. And I believe I found it. I believe it's going to be between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. In the mornings. I wanted to get on before Alex Jones and all the other stuff. Economy, do a little report, I guess, on it. It's looking okay, stable, the stock markets and stuff for the time being. That's all a facade as well. But I've been keeping a close eye on it. Of course, tomorrow's the 23rd, which, a lot of people are predicting bad things to happen tomorrow, either 23rd or the 24th. I don't personally make any predictions or anything like that. I do think that there's a storm brewing, and I do think that we are right at that storm. And we'll see. I just tell everybody to be vigilant, be ready, be prepared, be in good God, in God's grace, because this time around it's going to be different than it has any other time a country or the world has been in conflict. This time around it's going to be worse. And I went into detail about why on several shows. The population, there's a much larger population. It's going to be much harder. The whole logistics of it. It's going to be much harder for people to get food and needed supplies. And, it's not going to take too awful long. Within 72 hours, chaos will ensue. And it's not going to be pretty. I'm reading a book. Oh goodness, I'm trying to think. It's Patriots, a novel to survive the coming collapse or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it. Very, very good book. I'm actually on the second book right now of the series, which is called Survivors. It's by James Rawlings. If you want to check it out. Very, very, very good book. There's another book called 1 Second After. And if you haven't read 1 Second After, you need to get a copy of it. It's a novel about an EMP attack that happens on the country, but more importantly, what happens after that EMP attack. And he just released the second book on the 15th of this month, called 1 Year After. And, I'm dying to get a copy of that book. Wow, good books. If you want a good idea of what's to come, read 1 Second After. That does a really, really good job of showing it. And so does this other book by James Rawlings. The first one is called, I want to say it's called Patriots. Anyway, that's pretty much what I got for you. I need to, apparently there's an important issue I need to get dealt with. And tomorrow I will be set up with more news, maybe less opinion. But hey, I just try to approach things without the emotion, without the, I just try to look at it from a logical standpoint and, make a little more sense of things. So anyway, I'll remind you guys, once again, if you're not a member of the Facebook page, by all means, please go over there, like the Facebook page. That way I can keep you a little better updated as to things going on. Not only I share other news there, but we have a couple other admins that share news. Let's see here. Other than that, check out our Transforming Disabilities Facebook page, see what we're doing. Check out the GoFundMe page if you can. Please donate. If you can't afford to donate, please share it. It is going for a very good cause. I would love to be able to fund what we are doing, but I have no resources to do that. Jennifer doesn't have the extra resources to do that. The poor girl works her butt off, which isn't easy with cerebral palsy, but she gets out there. She puts in 37 and a half hours a week, and she's a fighter. She does a wonderful job. And, we can do a lot with a little bit. We just don't really have the extra little bit to get this started. That's why we started a GoFundMe campaign. So anyway, I'm not going to sit here and beg for money. It's not about that. We're just trying to do some good things. We're trying to eventually employ disabled individuals, and she can explain how much she appreciates being able to go to work and somebody that will allow her to go to work. But anyway, didn't want to really get off on that, but hey, it's me. So anyway, that's what I have for you. As always, God bless you. Be one with your spirit. And God willing, I will see you and talk to you tomorrow morning. All right. Have a good day.